The ice cracked under her heel as Natalie Vickers stepped into the Meridian Financial break room. She had been walking for nearly 40 minutes. Her left shoe was scuffed. She could feel a blister forming, and in her hand, wrapped in a Christmas napkin from her own kitchen, was a kitchen knife she had taken from her apartment 3 hours ago. She set it down on the counter beside the coffee maker. She looked at it for a moment. Then she began to wait. If you're finding these stories useful, consider subscribing. I spend a lot of time going deep on cases like this one, the ones that don't make headlines but deserve to. Hit the button and you'll see more. The Christmas party had started at 7. By 8:30, Natalie was standing near the window in the back corner of the Meridian Financial third-floor conference room, holding a plastic cup of wine she had not tasted. She was 31. She worked in accounts payable. She had been with the company for 6 years. She was good at her job in the way that invisible people are good at their jobs. Reliable, precise, never late, never remembered. The conference room smelled like pine candles and roasted almonds. Someone had hung garland from the ceiling tiles. A small speaker in the corner was playing Mariah Carey on a loop. 12 people remained from the original guest list of 30. The party had thinned out naturally. The senior associates had left first, then the younger interns, and now the room belonged to the mid-tier employees who had nowhere better to be and enough wine to make that feel fine. Natalie watched the door. She watched it the way someone watches a runway before a plane lands, with intent, with a specific arrival expected. Christine Walsh came through that door at 9:14. Christine was 28. She wore a green dress that complemented the season and a small gold necklace that complemented her. She had been promoted to senior accountant 14 months ago. She led the accounts reconciliation team. She mentored 2 junior staff members. She was, by every metric Meridian used to measure people who got promoted, exceptional. She was also, as of 3 weeks prior, sleeping with David Reinhold. David was regional operations manager. He was 39. He was tall in the way that made women in the office look twice, not because of the height itself, but because of what the height suggested about how he carried himself. He had been at Meridian for 8 years. He had a reputation for being fair, which in corporate environments is code for being safe. He had recently filed for divorce. The paperwork was not yet final. Natalie did not know about the affair when the party started. She learned about it at 9:16 when Christine walked into the conference room and David looked up from his conversation with the CFO, and his face did something that Natalie had never seen it do before, a softening, an unconscious rearrangement of his entire body toward her. A woman named Dana Restrepo, who worked in IT and had no particular interest in anyone else's life, leaned over to Natalie and said, "Didn't you used to talk to David all the time at the company retreat?" Natalie said, "Yeah." Dana said, "He seems really into Christine, huh?" Natalie said, "Yeah." She finished her wine in one motion. She picked up the bottle and poured another glass and stood there and watched David touch Christine's lower back as she laughed at something the CFO said. The touch was brief, casual, the kind of touch that means something only to the 2 people who understand what it means. What would you have done differently if you were the detective on this case? Drop it in the comments. I read them. I think about them. By 10:15, Natalie had moved from the conference room to the hallway outside the elevators. She had stopped drinking. She had started thinking. The thinking was not new. It had been running underneath everything for weeks, a low hum of something she could not quite name, something between humiliation and rage that she had been managing by sheer repetition of routine. She went to work. She did her spreadsheets. She went home. She cooked dinner for one. She went to bed. She did not think about David Reinhold more than 3 times a day, and that, she told herself, was manageable. But the party had changed the configuration. The party had shown her the things she had been trying not to see. Christine was in the hallway. She had stepped away from a group conversation. She was checking her phone. Natalie approached her. "Christine." Christine looked up. She smiled. It was a genuine smile, the kind Christine gave to everyone, including Natalie, because Christine was not cruel. She was simply winning, and winning people do not need to be cruel. "Natalie, hey, love the dress." Thanks. Natalie paused. She looked at Christine's necklace. The gold caught the hallway light. That necklace. David gave it to you, right? Christine's smile did not change, but something behind it shifted. A small recalibration. The kind that happens in half a second and means everything. David and I are together, Christine said. We were going to announce it after the new year, but she shrugged. I guess it doesn't matter now. The word together landed in Natalie's chest like a small, precise object. She felt it enter. She felt where it lodged. Okay, Natalie said. Christine touched her arm. Are you okay? You look... I'm fine, Natalie said. Congratulations. She walked to the elevator. She pressed the button. She stood there and listened to Mariah Carey bleeding through the conference room door, and she thought about the retreat in August, the lake, the bonfire. The way David had sat next to her for 2 hours talking about his marriage and what it felt like to be a person who had made a choice that was no longer working, and what it felt like to admit that to someone he barely knew. She thought about the moment he had put his hand on her knee and left it there for 30 seconds before removing it and saying, I shouldn't have done that. She thought about how she had driven home that night and sat in her apartment and felt something she had not felt in years. The specific electricity of being wanted by someone who could have wanted anyone. She took the elevator down. She drove home. She did not sleep. She called in sick the next morning. She did not call in sick because she was sick. She called in sick because she needed the day to do something she could not yet name. She cleaned her apartment. She reorganized her kitchen cabinets. She stood in her living room at noon and looked at the knife block on her counter, and then she looked away. She went for a walk. She came back. She made lunch. She sat on her couch and stared at the wall. At 2:15, she picked up her phone and looked at the photo from the company party that someone had already posted to the internal chat. It was a photo of Christine and David. Christine was laughing. David was looking at her the way you look at someone when you have decided to build your life around them. 37 people had reacted to the photo. 26 had left comments. Natalie closed the chat. She opened it again. She closed it. At 3:40, she drove to the Meridian Financial Building. She told herself she was going to talk to someone in HR about a scheduling issue. She was not going to talk to anyone in HR. She knew that. She went because she needed to be in the building. She needed to see the room. She parked in the visitor lot. She sat in her car for 8 minutes. Then she went inside. The break room on the 3rd floor was a room no one talked about. It sat between the supply closet and the copy room, behind a door that was always slightly ajar. It contained a refrigerator, a microwave, a coffee maker that no one trusted, and a rectangular table with 6 chairs that were never all occupied at the same time. The window faced the parking garage next door. On winter afternoons, the light that came in was gray and flat, and it made everything in the room look like evidence. Christine was there when Natalie pushed the door open. She was alone. She had a Tupperware container of leftovers and a fork, and she was eating over the sink because she preferred not to sit at the table when she ate alone. She looked up and her face registered surprise, and then something adjacent to worry. Natalie, I thought you were out sick. I came back. Christine wiped her mouth with a napkin. She set the container down. She leaned against the counter. Are you okay? At the party, when I told you about David, I seemed what? Christine tilted her head slightly. She was not afraid. There was no reason for her to be afraid. She was a senior accountant eating her lunch in a break room, and the woman standing in front of her was a coworker from accounts payable who had always been quiet and correct and harmless. There was nothing in Christine's experience that told her to be afraid. You seemed like you were processing something, Christine said. That's all. Natalie took a step forward. Her hands were at her sides. David and I had a moment at the retreat, she said. You should know that. Christine's expression changed. Not much, but enough. At the retreat, she laughed, a short exhalation. Natalie, David and I have been together for 2 months. He never mentioned. He put his hand on my knee. He told me things about his marriage that he never told anyone else. He said he shouldn't have done that, but he did, and I thought it meant something. Christine set down her fork. She wiped her hands on the napkin slowly. Natalie, I'm sorry if you misinterpreted something, but David and you think I'm stupid. No, I don't. I think you misunderstood something. Those are different things. Stop saying that. Natalie's voice dropped. The pitch changed. There was something underneath it now. Not loud, not sharp, but dense. The sound of pressure building behind the door. Stop saying I misunderstood. I don't misunderstand things. I see exactly what's happening, and no one ever thinks I see it because I don't say it out loud, and then everyone acts surprised when I do. Christine took a half step back. Her hip touched the counter. She was not running. She was recalculating. She was a person used to managing difficult conversations, and difficult conversations, in her experience, could be navigated with calm and clarity. Natalie, I hear you. I can see this is painful, but there is nothing. He told me he was thinking about leaving his wife. He told me he had never felt this way about anyone. Those are his exact words. I remember them. David didn't say that to you. You don't know what David said to me. The room was very quiet. Outside, a car door closed. The refrigerator hummed. The gray light from the window hit the linoleum floor and made it look like something out of a memory. Christine's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. She looked back at Natalie. I need to get back to my desk, she said. Let's talk about this later, okay? I'm not trying to dismiss you. When? When what? When will you talk about this? When will it be convenient for you? Christine reached for her phone. Natalie moved faster. The argument had been building for 11 months. The moment at the retreat, the weeks of silence, the party, the hallway, the photo in the chat, 37 reactions, 26 comments, the drive home, the apartment, the knife on the counter that she had looked at and then looked away from, the walk, the drive, the parking garage, the elevator, the hallway, the door. None of it was in Natalie's plan. None of it had been on the list of things she might do when she walked into this room. She had thought she was coming here to say something. She had thought she was coming here to make Christine understand, to make her hear it, to make her see the thing Natalie had seen and had carried alone for months and had tried to put down and could not. What happened next happened in seconds. It happened the way things happen when someone who has been holding something for a very long time finally lets go of it, without control, without intention, without plan. What would you have done differently if you were the detective? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I think about them when I'm reviewing cases like this one. Cases where the story everyone expects is not the story that actually happened. The security footage from the Meridian Financial third floor recorded continuously. It did not have audio. The video, when it was reviewed 3 days later by detectives from the local police department, showed 2 women entering the break room. One entered at 3:47 p.m., the other at 3:49 p.m. The door remained closed. At 4:02 p.m., a third employee, a man from the marketing department whose desk was 30 feet away, passed the break room and noticed the door was closed when it was usually ajar. He assumed someone was inside having a private conversation. He kept walking. At 4:18 p.m., the same man walked past again. The door was still closed. He knocked. No one answered. He tried the handle. It was locked. He went to the front desk. He reported that the break room door was locked and that 2 coworkers had been inside for an extended period. The receptionist called the building manager. The building manager used a master key. The scene was described in the police report as a deceased female located in the break room area and a second female present who was conscious and cooperative. Natalie Vickers was sitting at the table. Christine Walsh was on the floor near the sink. A kitchen knife was on the counter beside a half-eaten container of leftovers. Paramedics were called. Christine Walsh was pronounced dead at the scene by the time they arrived. Natalie did not run. She did not hide the knife. She did not attempt to clean the room or move anything or alter the scene in any way. When the door opened and the building manager stood in the frame with his hand on the door handle, Natalie was sitting exactly where she had been sitting for the last 16 minutes. Her hands were in her lap. Her shoes were still on. She looked up at the building manager and said, with a clarity that he would later describe to investigators as deeply unsettling, "Call someone. I think she's dead." She answered every question the first officers asked. She did not cry. She did not apologize. She gave her full name, her employee ID, and a brief, factual account of what had happened, which she delivered in the same tone she used when reconciling accounts at the end of a quarter: precise, unsentimental, and complete. When the detectives arrived, she repeated the account. When they Mirandized her, she said she understood her rights. When they asked if she wanted a lawyer, she said, "I don't think I need one yet." She was wrong about that. The investigation moved quickly. The break room was processed. The knife was recovered and sent for analysis. The security footage was pulled. Phone records showed that Natalie had searched Meridian Financial Holiday Party and how long to drive from apartment to office on her personal browser at 2:58 p.m. the afternoon of the incident. She had also searched what happens if you kill someone at 6:14 p.m. the same evening, after the act, before the door opened. The searches did not help her. What helped the prosecution more than anything was the statement she gave to detectives in the first hour, before she understood the full weight of what was happening. She had been asked to describe the argument. She did. She described in detail the moment her hand closed around the knife. She described the movement. She described the sound Christine made, which she called a short exhale, like she was surprised but not scared yet. She described the moment Christine fell and the way her head hit the edge of the counter on the way down. She described standing over her for approximately 4 minutes before she sat back down at the table. She described all of it with the same uninflected precision she used for everything. The case file listed the cause of death as a single stab wound to the upper chest that severed the subclavian artery. The medical examiner noted that the wound was consistent with a blade approximately 8 inches in length. The knife from Natalie Vickers' kitchen was 8 3/4 inches. It had been in her apartment for 4 years. She had never used it for anything more aggressive than carving a chicken. The motive, as outlined in the charging documents, was romantic obsession and perceived humiliation. The prosecution argued that Natalie had developed an attachment to David Reinhold based on a single interaction at a company retreat and had interpreted his behavior as romantic interest when it was at most professional friendliness. When Christine's relationship with David was made public at the holiday party, Natalie experienced a collapse of the fantasy she had been maintaining and acted with lethal violence in response. David Reinhold was interviewed by detectives twice. He described Natalie as quiet and professional. He said he remembered the retreat but could not recall any specific one-on-one conversation with her. He said he had never indicated to Natalie that he was interested in anything beyond a collegial working relationship. He said he was shocked and deeply sorry for Christine's family. His alibi for the afternoon of the incident was confirmed by his calendar. He was in a meeting in the building's East Conference Room from 3 to 5 p.m. with 6 other employees and his assistant. He had not been in the break room. He had not known it was happening. Natalie's apartment was searched pursuant to a warrant. Investigators found the kitchen knife block with 1 knife missing. They found the search history on her personal laptop. They found a journal, a small leather-bound book she had kept since college, in which she had written, over the preceding 8 months, entries about David Reinhold. The entries were not love letters. They were something more unsettling, detailed observations, descriptions of how he laughed, what he wore on specific days, the exact words he used in a conversation she overheard in the elevator in October. The last entry, dated 2 days before the incident, read, "She doesn't deserve him. She has no idea what she has." The journal was entered into evidence. It was the piece of the case that could not be explained away. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The prosecution called 18 witnesses. The defense argued that Natalie had experienced a brief psychotic episode triggered by stress and unresolved trauma from childhood. Her father had left when she was 7 and had not contacted her since. The defense's expert witness, a forensic psychologist, testified that Natalie had constructed a parasocial attachment to David Reinhold that had progressively merged with her sense of self, and that when the attachment was publicly invalidated by Christine's presence, the psychological structure collapsed, resulting in a temporary break from reality. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Natalie Vickers was found guilty of first-degree murder on the 3rd day of deliberations. She showed no reaction when the verdict was read. She looked at the jury for the full duration of the reading, and then she looked down at her hands. The sentencing hearing took place 4 months later. Christine Walsh's mother gave a statement that lasted 11 minutes. She described her daughter as kind, driven, and undeserving of what had happened to her. She asked the court for the maximum sentence. Natalie's defense attorney asked for leniency. He cited the childhood abandonment, the documented history of social isolation, the absence of any prior criminal record or violent incident. Natalie was sentenced to 25 years to life, with the possibility of parole after 20 years. She was 31 years old. She did not speak at the sentencing. She was permitted to make a statement and declined. The judge noted this on the record. David Reinhold resigned from Meridian Financial 6 weeks after the trial. He relocated to another state. He did not attend the sentencing. He sent flowers to Christine Walsh's mother, who did not accept them. Natalie Vickers is incarcerated at a women's correctional facility in the eastern part of the state. She works in the library. She has not applied for parole. She has not appealed. The break room was renovated after the incident. The door was replaced. The coffee maker was thrown out and replaced. The fluorescent light above the table was changed. The new carpet had a slightly different shade of gray. Everything looked the same as before. That was the part no one could explain. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. I bring you cases like this one every week. Not the headlines, but the ones that deserve the full picture. What was the breaking point? Drop your theory in the comments.